So good afternoon, everyone. This is Audrey Russo, President and CEO of the Pittsburgh Technology Council, and thrilled to have everyone here today. It's a rainy day in Pittsburgh, but that's okay. We continue to plow ahead and make sure that we're keeping our community tightly knitted and making sure that everyone knows what's going on, as well as meeting companies, elected officials, and understanding all that's affecting us during these surreal times, but many of us are proceeding as business as usual. So Jonathan Kirsting is with us today. He is always with us. He's the Vice President of Marketing and Media and all things storytelling at the Tech Council. We have a chat, and the chat is, for you to ask questions. It's not a time for you to sell your wares. It's just a time to ask our guests what they're up to or any kind of point that you would like to make. Would like to give a shout out always to Huntington Bank. They've been our partners right from the onset, and they've been our partners in many things and not just business as usual, but they have been with us right from the beginning. They've been helping small businesses, large businesses through the whole process of the CARES Act and making sure that people get what they need during this period of the pandemic. So I've also muted your microphones. That's just so that you can, not have any noise in the background. Hopefully my dogs will not make an appearance today. They have not been behaving very well this week, and I'm not exactly sure why. So if you hear them, my apologies. So today we have Orne Bay, who is the founder and CEO of a company called Excellerent. And he is going to be joined by Michael Mottola, who is new on his team. And we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive and talk to Orne about what's up, what's Accelerant, how did he start, what's it mean to be an entrepreneur, where is he from? And I even asked him what were his first words that he ever uttered as a child, but he couldn't really remember that.
I think it was digital transformation.
It was digital transformation.
Yeah.
You're right. Instead of mama, papa.
Yeah, digital transformation.
Digital transformation. So I want to bring on Orne Bay, and I want to thank him for taking the time to join us because he's an entrepreneur building business, and he actually comes from Pittsburgh. He's got an interesting backstory that I want to just talk to him about. So I'm going to start with Orne, and then I'll introduce Mike Mottola in a moment. So Orne, thank you for joining us today. You're joining us from your office, right?
Yes. First off, thank you for having me. Again, I am joining you from my office. We've recently began a transition back to the office plan. And so far we're up to 2 days a week just to kind of, have that cohesiveness with the team. We're in the office 2 days a week to kind of try to balance between mitigating the risk and also moving your business forward.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, I'm glad you shared that. It's important for everyone to know what other people are doing and sort of benchmark that and understand the level of confidence as well as sentiment. So Orne, tell us a bit about yourself. So how are you from Pittsburgh? How did you get into this business? Did you?
Sure. Actually, I appreciate that. Again, thanks for having me. I am a Pittsburgh lifer. I was, born in Pittsburgh and have essentially been here all of my life. I went to Penn State University, so that was a short stint away from Pittsburgh, but not too far away. When I went to Penn State, actually went to Barron, initially McKeesport campus, which is now called the Greater Allegheny campus.
Greater Allegheny, yes.
I spent 2 years there, and then I went to Barron campus up in Erie. And spent 2 years there, and I graduated with a business management degree, back a long time ago. In any event, I grew up in the south side of Pittsburgh in a neighborhood called Beltsuver, which is it's I guess a part of what they call the hilltop. It's there's Beltsuver, Knoxville, Allentown. And it kind of touches Mount Oliver on one side and Mount Washington on the other. So that's where it all started. My parents still live there. I live not far, not too far, and I frequent the area and continue to work with the community.
That's great. So you work with the community up there? What kinds of things do you do?
Well, there's a lot of grassroots organizations that or different programs for kids, etc. So we like to stay in touch with those organizations and introduce technology and speak to the kids on occasion about technology careers and try to encourage and create a path towards technology careers and education.
It's hard, isn't it? It's really hard because we do a lot of that work at the Tech Council as well through our nonprofit 40 by 80 as well as through the Tech Council. But you know what someone said to me not too long ago? Audrey, you're not cool. We need cool people to be talking to younger people about tech.
And that's a very good point, Audrey, because I think, a lot of it is making that connection. You're kind of like, seeing yourself take that path. Again, as someone who's kind of grown up in that community, grown up in Beltsover, a lot of your early references are, to success is what you see in your community.
Right.
And, unfortunately, a lot of the, more successful folks end up moving away from the community. So it leaves the children, without that level of exposure, so I think it's important to keep those touch points.
How did you decide that you wanted to go into business management? How did you decide that you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
Well, I've always, at a very early age, kind of, fancied myself a leader, in a lot of ways. I mean, I've just kind of found myself, whatever the conversation or debate or activity, kind of, leading those conversations as opposed to following those conversations. And I always wanted to kind of, drive that into creating, value in some form or fashion, through creating my own business. So I remember, even, during college, even at, Penn State McKeesbrook campus, I was a president of the Black Student Union. And when I was at Barron campus, I was a president of the Association of Black Collegians. And through those experiences, Penn State does a great job of developing leaders. There's different leadership retreats, et cetera, that you have the opportunity to participate in. They had a great, entrepreneurial program at Penn State. When you're doing your bachelor's in business management. So those are some of the early, early tools that I was able to take advantage of to kind of, mold my roadmap, if you will, or at least guide my roadmap into what I wanted to do, moving forward.
And so there's another term for that. It's called bossiness, right? Which is a good term, right? So you learn that as you navigated through some experiences that were at your feet, which is fabulous. So what, did you come right out of school and say you started Excellerent, or what happened?
Oh, no, absolutely not. I mean, it's certainly been a journey, just like, most folks that come out of college, again, you're trying to find your path, find yourself. And that's another thing, again, it kind of goes back to, the community you grow up in. I think it's important, as I've reached this stage in my career, I think it's very important to have an early path. When you don't have an early path, you don't necessarily check all the boxes to make it easy for you to get there if you need to pivot. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that I've learned through my experience. So when I graduated from Penn State in '93. I got into business management. I worked in, believe it or not, in home improvements. I worked for Sears Home Improvements. And
oh, nice.
I ran a phone room, phone center, or generating leads and how do you manage that, so it's been a journey, and I kind of, shifted from, from home improvements. I got into software sales, and from software sales got into IT services consultancy. And, so my my first job in IT services was in late '97. And I actually started off as an account manager and kind of got my feet wet and understanding, the landscape of IT services, what are the gaps there. And business was certainly booming back then. I remember, getting into it, everyone was on this path to destruction unless we go in and extend the codes for Y2K, right?
Sure, I remember that, right.
Back in those days. So it was massive amounts of data, huge, mainframe legacy systems that needed to be, changed in order to account for the millennial, for the 2000s. So that's kind of where I started my career. So I think it was a very good place because you have that that insight, back to the mainframe world, to the legacy world, and then again moving into client server, then quickly thereafter to the the e-commerce boom. And
Right.
the whole digitization of everything was more or less ERP systems becoming like standard, right? To ERP implementation, to web development, now to cloud and cloud migration. So we've kind of seen the whole I guess the whole life cycle of that. And a big part of my career, what's been consistent across all those different areas from Y2K all the way till now, whether it's moving into machine learning, cloud migration, et cetera, has been the need to leverage a global workforce to get it done. Right. Early on, it was very apparent that there's, tons of gaps. Initially, those gaps were filled with, as I'm sure most folks in technology would know, through massive amounts of H-1Bs coming into the country to fill the void, right? And that continues. But as internet tools and VPN, became secure and standard, then it was quickly offshoring. I think as early as 99, I was working with U.S. companies, introducing them to how VPN works, how you can leverage a global workforce. And for a very long time, that was done out of India. India certainly, dominates that landscape. And my first visit to India was in 99, in fact. So I was a firsthand, witness to the transformation of India. How they were able to leverage their number one resource, which was their people, to really transform the country. And do it in a way where it's adding value to a global landscape, right? And one of the, and just kind of to lead into me founding Excellerent, is that, throughout that journey, it was just a huge boom. And at some point, however, the market was validated. India outsourcing became best practice, and the market became saturated. Right. So now everyone who's anyone has, a team of 1,000 engineers working for them out of India. So it became a lot, I guess it became a lot more challenging for mid-tier and I guess smaller organizations to attract and retain top talent in India. Because suddenly you're not just providing opportunities to engineers who don't have opportunity. You're providing opportunities, but you're competing with Microsoft and Google and Apple and Amazon. And then you have, the Fortune 100 companies like Sony and GE, who have massive presence in India. And then, if you're able to get by those guys, then you have the huge consulting firms in India who have, 10,000 plus employees each. So it's become, so that ecosystem, I mean, it's great because it allowed India to really improve the quality of life of millions of people, increase the wages of millions of people. So now you have this massive upper middle class in India, where 30 years ago that was void. But, it created, challenges with attrition. Again, I think when you're looking at, organizations that are looking to leverage, an outsourced model offshore, it's important that they get productivity. And a big part of that is making that investment into your business domain, making an investment into, I guess, the relationship and marriage of the organizations. But what I've found is that because of the challenge with attrition, we weren't able to give or continue to give our clients the biggest bang for their buck, because by the time resources ramped up to a certain level of productivity, and you always want to manage towards, a resource offshore approaching the level of productivity that you would find in your own office, right? And that's when you're really getting value. But what we were finding is by the time you approach that level, these resources were moving on, right? They're either getting recruited out of your organization or they're getting promoted to other projects. So it became challenging, and it led me to explore, two things. One thing, Andre, I found that there was that void, as I mentioned. Secondly, I was a witness to the transformation of India, where they were able to create this massive middle class to really drastically, improve the infrastructure of the country, drastically improve the quality of life of tens of millions of people in country. And then, of course, that economy creates a sub-economy, right? Because suddenly you have engineers that are making more money than they could have ever, thought about, and suddenly have this disposable income that kind of creates a sub-economy under it. So I took the lessons from that and made a very conscious, intentional decision to invest in a, I would say, dare I say, historically impoverished developing country who had all the hallmarks that made India successful. Right, and that is the volume of educated engineers, right? So we first looked at universities and what they were producing, dependable infrastructure, political friendliness, lack of crime, availability to the U.S. And we started our development center in Addis Ababa, which is the capital city of Ethiopia.
So wait, so you started the company then?
No, I actually, so when I started Excellerent, my vision was to actually to start in Ethiopia. But because of just the necessities of running a business, and depending on the investment that you have, et cetera, you first need to create value in business, at least enough to keep the lights on, right? So that model. So I didn't start Accelerant, in the Ethiopia Delivery Center in parallel. The vision was always there. Excellerant was founded, for the very purpose of starting a delivery center in Ethiopia. But we didn't start that initially. Initially starting Excellerant, I kind of relied on, relationships and infrastructure that I had in place, throughout my relationships. We did start with a center in India, and of course, our offices here in Pittsburgh. And we do both, of course, business in the U.S. and look at leveraging offshore. So eventually we started our, after, 3 years of kind of building our business, building our clientele, building our brand, we were fortunate enough to actually get our kickoff and kick off our delivery center in Ethiopia.
Wow. So we're gonna bring Michael on in a minute, but let's just talk about, you have a team of people in Ethiopia. You travel there a lot. Do you have?
Yes. I have, and I don't use this term lightly, but I'll say a world-class, team of engineers in our Ethiopia Delivery Center, from our country director down to, our recruiters, our QA, from A to Z, we have extremely talented, team in Ethiopia. So right now we're approaching, about 200 in Ethiopia. Our goal over the next, 2 years is to grow that to 1,000. I know it's an ambitious goal, but again, the idea is to scale it to a point where we're able to showcase to the world where suddenly, a similar transformation will happen where other companies say, yes, we get it. There's another, preferred destination, and we're able to create jobs at scale in that region. And one of the differentiators that we're, as first movers, we have the ability to attract top talent. Again, we're not competing with Google in Ethiopia. We're competing with Amazon, for engineers. We are, if not the top destination, for engineers in Ethiopia right now. So we're able to really kind of have the pick of the litter. But that's, so that's for that level of quality. But we've reached a stage where we have an extremely talented core, where we've also, we're also bringing in, young engineers, interns, and we're also continuing to develop that talent now on the back end.
So when's the last time you were in Ethiopia?
I was actually in Ethiopia for 3 weeks, starting on July 23rd. I was scheduled to go there in March, but of course COVID hit. and we all had to adjust to COVID, one way or the other, and just to kind of, if I may add that, COVID's impact, in March, there were a number, probably, I'll say 3 significant, engagements that we were expecting to kick off that came to a screeching halt, right? Oops, we have to rethink this. So we didn't know what the impact was going to be, long term. But after our clients in the market in general had, a few months to really adjust and understand what COVID meant to their business, and they quickly, shifted. And as of late June, our growth trajectory has taken off, in fact, at a better pace than it was before COVID. Because, companies realize that, again, they have to accelerate their digital transformation. There's adjustment that they need to make to be able to work remotely, to provide services remotely, and cater to the customers in a different way. And the service offerings that we have allow them to do that, because that's right in our wheelhouse, not only from an expertise perspective or a know-how perspective, but also because we have our delivery center in Ethiopia, we're able to do this in a way that provides more value. The cost of executing from Ethiopia is probably about 1/3 of what it would be if you're executing from the US, or even less, depending on the nature of the project.
So let's just jump to Michael. Let's bring Michael on, Michael Mottola. Michael, you're part of Orne's team now, and not just in terms of your experience and perspective, because you've done some interesting stints in your life, and anyone can go to his LinkedIn and see the work that he's done. But why are you there now? Like, why are you working with Orne now when you have had lots of interesting experiences in terms of artificial intelligence, IBM, Watson, IoT, et cetera? So what are you doing for him now, and why?
So you're hitting on why I wanted to join this team. Really, I'm glad you asked the question. Orne just highlighted for you some of the real and remarkable business differentiators of his business. And we'll always, as we compete with other firms, we'll always lead with those aspects. But frankly, there's lots of companies I could have gone to that had those aspects. This company, both from Orne as well as some of the other really, really talented people that work for him, they have a heart. They have a heart and a soul that you don't find in a lot of companies. And it attracted me at this point in my career. I'd like to impact the world and make a real positive difference. What he just said about expanding from a few hundred to thousands in Ethiopia, what a way to make an impact on the world, right? And I told him, Orne, if I join your team, I want to have a chance to help make that change, to help impact that. And a lot of companies, we're highlighting in our new webpage, we're going to highlight how we directly contribute to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And we do. This company does. I'm really fortunate to join the team of very talented people here. But it gives me the chance, my personal journey it gives me the chance to impact those in a very, very direct way, as well as, some control over the rest of my career in terms of building this practice here, right? This is a great opportunity for me to bring my skills and build a really strong, solid practice here. When Orne said that they have some talented engineers in the Ethiopia folks, they do. They have some really impressive backgrounds in the AI space that we're going to expose to the world here very shortly.
So talk a little bit about the U.S. Sustainable Goals. And you mentioned that before we jumped on the air. Can you talk about, there's 2 goals in particular? Yeah,
so the UN Sustainable Development Goals, I'd suggest all of your readers, or all the visitors here today, go out and check that out. There are 2 goals that we directly contribute to. Goal 8, which is helping build good high-tech jobs in historically impoverished areas. And goal 13, which is fighting climate change. You'll see that Orne and his team of leaders that he has really directly brings, that is a historically impoverished area. And that definition is given on the UN site as a certain amount of revenue or salary per year, right? And Ethiopia falls below that level. In fact, the last council met in Addis Ababa in 2015, where they developed those goals. So goal 8 is something that we are directly impacting in a very real and tangible way. Goal 13 around climate change. One of my recent posts on LinkedIn was about the Great Green Wall. And I don't know how many people have heard about the Great Green Wall, but it is it's a mind-blowingly ambitious project. To build a wall of trees 500 miles long across a continent just kind of blew my mind. And then I saw a video of Orne and Kevin and a couple others and the folks in Ethiopia actually planting 500 trees in contribution to that wall. So it's very cool. It's something that I wanted to join. It motivated me, and it's a lot of good stuff in it for me.
There is, and you come from a terrific background that's been very diverse. So that's I highlighted it briefly, but he actually started his work at Westinghouse, so he actually has some deep corporate roots, as well as consulting experience that he's bringing to this cause. So, Orne, this is quite a story, right? From a guy who, by the way, Jonathan grew up in the neighborhood adjacent to you as well. This is you have an amazing story and obviously a lot of zest and determination to achieve this. Before we wrap up, there's a couple of comments in here, and there is one question that I want Jonathan to just read and see if he could answer. And thank you, Michael, for sharing.
Yeah, Michael's providing some good vibes for us today. We always appreciate that. And he wants to know, he first says, hey, this is an amazing investment in the future of Ethiopia and in U.S. partnership through engineering. The question is the U.S. federal government picking up parts of the tab on this important work that you're doing? He's hoping that there's some sort of government involvement to help you do what you're doing.
That's a good question, and the answer is no. This is an investment that has been strictly private. It's been 100% Excellerent funded. And it's been self-sufficient till now. And I like that question because it allows me to say this. I think it's important that this effort is self-sufficient, but I think there's a certain level of, when you look at, trying to make a change, trying to do something transformational, I think the end goal is self-determination, right? It's more or less opportunity, not aid, right? So if you're looking at, again, for example, what aid can governments provide in order to help you do this or help you do that. I think there's been, tons of programs that have failed because they're missing the final piece, which is self-determination. So I think what we're looking at it is, not that, let's look at how we can help Ethiopia, but Ethiopia has the talent to help you if you're willing to give them an opportunity to add value, right? Because we can genuinely add value. So whatever project that you have in technology, we can deliver it, I think, certainly as good, if not better, probably more cost effectively than what you're getting. So without stepping outside of your normal, R&D spin or whatever it is that you do, you can get done your business goals while at the same time helping, as Michael mentioned, the UN sustainability goals, helping to create an economy, helping create jobs, help improve the quality of life. Our mantra more than anything is that, again, if you have the work ethic, if you have the talent, if you have the aptitude, you should have an opportunity for success. So we're looking at, at trying to bridge that, again, where you have talent, you have work ethic, you have the aptitude, but not necessarily the opportunity. But there's certainly enough gaps, particularly in technology, where there's needs. So if we can just bridge the two, I think it'll just be a win-win, you know, for a global citizenship?
Listen, you have a very interesting and it's really an honor just to listen to someone who has the intention of giving back to the neighborhood that they came from, as well as taking an opportunity to look at changing the world. And I think that we need to understand that there are ways in the tech community that we can help support and ride along the vision that I think Michael articulated well in terms of his own career and journey. So we want to stay connected to you. Everyone, we put the site out there, Excellerent, and that's how you can find Orne Bay. He's the founder, and probably you can find Michael Mottola that way as well, if not on LinkedIn. We're going to stay close to you. We really appreciate you both taking the time with us, and just stay safe. Continue to stay safe, and I'm glad that you're thriving, and hopefully there are ways that you can become more tethered into the local community as you achieve these global goals. So thank you, Orne. Thank you, Michael.
Thank
Jonathan,
you.
who do we have tomorrow?
I'm pumped for tomorrow, Audrey, because we have the one and only Pete DeComo from A-Long. This guy's been helping that company, growing that company for like 15 years. Great story.
Hear about Hemolung tomorrow?
Yes.
Everything that he's been doing, particularly in COVID. So
Absolutely.
Thank you, Orne. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. Stay safe, and we will see you here tomorrow.
Thanks again for the opportunity, Audrey.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day.